we're sort of trying a new approach in methodology today. There are a number of topics that are of interest to our group, and as we surveyed, there's a number of them where we have an internal expert or an internal member who knows somebody else outside and can get them in to speak about a particular topic for us. But then there are a number of others where we don't necessarily have a candidate who feels comfortable giving us an overview so that we can have a discussion about it. So today we're trying this new approach of using YouTube video as the way to have the introduction on this cryptocurrency topic, and then have a discussion as a result after that. Okay, so we hope that works, and if it does work and if you like it, we can do it more often. And there are topics, just two to be named, or one is future of the internet, and the second one was just credit. Putting holds on credit, that I'm sure there are many internet videos about. So I'm looking for volunteers who might be willing to do a little bit of research, show that, and then to just monitor the discussion. So if any of you have feedback on any of those things, I'd appreciate it. Now today's, the idea actually comes from John Tomaszewski, and then George Cull is the one who found this particular video. We were looking around, but the one that we're going to show is one of few that covers the topic from toe to heel or from head to foot or whatever you want to say. It doesn't go very deep, but it's kind of to get us all to the same point, if we can. And thirdly, then I want to say that Rich Yeager came up with the idea that before we watch this video, we should take a survey on where we're at as far as what we know about or think about or want to hear about related to cryptocurrency. And I'm sure we're all over the place on that. So we did a short survey, and much to my surprise, I predicted that we get 10 to a dozen responses. We got almost 50 responses, and Rich is going to take a moment and make some remarks and then share the results of that before we start the video. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. And my thanks to all the people who responded. That was a great response. So thank you very much. Some respondents made comments as well as giving just their selections. And from the comments, it was clear to me that at least some were struggling to make a selection. One pointed out that in his view, there were important differences between crypto and any of the choices that were there, so hard to make a choice. Two mentioned tulips. One said maybe tulip mania. One said more like tulips. Obvious references to the tulip bulb bubble and subsequent crash in Holland centuries ago. Interestingly enough, all three of those chose the last choice, a new and completely different thing. Let me show you, screen share the results. Hopefully I can do this. Okay. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So as you can see, we had a total of 48 responses, and the way I counted, just as a footnote, each respondent counts as one. So if somebody picked two of the choices, then each of those choices for that person got a count of a half, and that's the reason why you see a couple of 0.5s there. So each person gets one full vote in this. And as you can see, about 3/4 chose the last one, G, a completely new and different thing. I suspect many who chose that G were thinking, well, crypto is not really any one of the others, so I guess I have to go with G. sort of a none of the above kind of response. The second most popular choices were commodities and US dollars, very interesting. And then the third most popular, although obviously all three were behind the first choice, was baseball cards. I also suspect that some of the respondents were asking themselves as they looked at the survey, well, what is the perspective of the poll? Crypto as an investment for me, an investment for other people, a way of transferring money, a way of paying bills, a technological process. So I think one takeaway from this poll is that many of us are conflicted in our opinion on cryptocurrency and would welcome additional information and additional clarity on this. And so I think that brings us to the point where I turn it back to you, Tom, and we proceed with getting more information and clarity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rich. That is the hope, and that's why we're doing this. And if this works well, and if there's enough interest, we can certainly do more TUG sessions on it in the future. Again, this is very general, very high level, just to get us to the same page. There are so many subtopics that we could break this into, but just a couple of points. I don't know how to verify them, but from some, so I did a lot of reading about it, and from one source, I don't remember exactly where it was, but the feeling is that 20% of adults in the United States have traded cryptocurrencies. That sounds awfully high to me and anybody that I know, but it was a reputable source. And the other thing that really I found surprising is there is this line on the IRS 1040 that we all have to fill out that is right below the name, the general information, asking about whether or not you've traded in any cryptocurrencies this year. And I think it was actually on last year's too, but at that point, I don't know that I noticed it. Government is very concerned. They're looking into it. The downside is the upside, they feel they have to get some control over this. And that's hard to do. But there are so many benefits as well as many negatives that my personal feeling is that some portion of this is going to come and we're all going to be dealing with, and we are to a degree already. I mean, many of you know that I'm a New York Ranger fan and I have a season subscription to the Rangers, so I get surveys all the time. And a standard part of their survey for the last couple of months is, do you use any cryptocurrencies? And if so, they even go to one of the detail to what do you do about them? How do you feel about that? Which my answer is no. But anyway, I just, it's in my awareness, it's becoming more and more prevalent, and more people are interested, more and more organizations are asking about it. And there are apparently thousands of cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin was the first and is still the largest, but there are thousands literally of different cryptocurrencies. Anyway, without saying more, I'm going to try to share the screen and we'll watch the 14 minute video and we'll go from there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you got something out of it. I would, before we start talking, I'd just be interested in knowing how many of us, currently we have 41 people on, how many of us, if any, either have traded in some sort of cryptocurrency or has a family member that lives in your house that's traded in cryptocurrencies. If you have any of that, please either raise your hand or check the yes. Okay, I don't get a total. Can anybody see the totals?
3 raised hands, 1 check, 4 no's, and that's it.
So essentially of 40, 4 of us have done some dabbling in cryptocurrency. So that's 10%. And I really didn't have a feel for what that would be. Anyway, okay, I open it up to discussion. Did you like the video? Did you like the approach? And where shall we go from here? But let's put down your hands and raise hands and I'll call on people. Al Aho.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more about cryptocurrencies. And this video is entertaining, but very, very superficial.
Yes.
It mentioned cryptography. Cryptography is a science, mathematically oriented, and we use cryptography all the time if we're doing transactions on the internet using credit cards with things like RSA or asymmetric protocols. And they mentioned hash functions. Hashing is very critical to the security of cryptocurrency. So it's an introduction, but I think if you really want to understand cryptocurrencies, you have to go a lot more deeply in it. I've asked this question of a number of CEOs of cryptocurrency exchanges, and they don't like this question. So my question is, if I buy a book, a paper book, my children and children's children will probably be able to read it. On the other hand, if I buy a ebook, there's no guarantee that my children or children's children will be able to read it into the indefinite future because of evolving standards and software for ebook readers. So let's take cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies depend on networks and software. Who is responsible for the infrastructure to maintain Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies into the foreseeable future? And as some people may have noted, what happens if the network goes down or some countries decide to withdraw from the internet? What happens then to your cryptocurrency holdings if you're in that country? The CEOs refuse to answer this question.
I think it's because they don't know.
Yes, and do you want to have a currency where you don't know whether it's going to have value in the future?
Well, I don't, I mean, I can see pluses and minuses. I can't answer that question, but there are certainly a lot of people who don't seem to be worried about that. And there are advantages. It is, as he pointed out, it's very volatile. It goes up and down all the time. And Bitcoin is just one of many. You know, there are one of the ones that he talked about, Ethereum, is interesting in that you can actually put contractual, I don't know, I guess it's through software, you can put contractual terms along with the transaction so that you can do away with middlemen for real estate brokers, let's say, or for any kind of broker that's doing this. So there's an awful lot of power there. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I think at the rate it's expanding, we have to be concerned with it. Mark Edelman.
First of all, it's really important not to confuse cryptocurrency as a speculation or a commodity with cryptocurrency, as money. Those are two different things.
Okay, good point.
And there's not much doubt today that, the speculations in cryptocurrency are pretty wild. That has nothing to do with the function of a currency, just as money. And of course, the trouble is that the value of a crypto unit is subject to this speculation. So it goes up and down and up and down. That makes it a very poor substitute for traditional types of money. Because, when you hold dollars, you want at least some degree of stability. When you hold cryptocurrency, you're just gambling. So that's a very important difference. Now, that may change in the future. If it does, okay. So I tried to make a list for myself while I was watching the video of all the different things that the video mentioned, the different functions. So one of them is just being a currency. Well, yes, crypto is a currency, and of course, we already have currencies. The next thing is it's banking. So there are those ledgers that they keep talking about. Well, that's right. And they are reasonably secure, or they'll evolve to be reasonably secure. But we already have institutions that do that. We call them banks. The next thing is production. The crypto mining. And okay, that's legitimate. Of course, we have a process in our national currencies. We have a process of money creation. And so we already have that. Maybe this new way is better. I don't know. The next thing is crypto as a commodity. And I just mentioned that. That's where all the speculation is. And then the next thing is it's a venue for stealing and for laundering money. Well, yeah, it is. And we already have that too. Using traditional currencies, tremendous amounts of money are laundered all over the world, and tremendous amounts are stolen. So that isn't really anything new. The next thing is cash, the idea that it's anonymous and untraceable. Turns out that's not completely true. I mean, the FBI has tracked down some cryptocurrency suspects. Apparently they're pretty good at doing it. It is true that the accounts don't have your name on them, but that doesn't mean that they're untraceable. And the transactions are completely traceable. That's the whole point of the blockchain, is to make them traceable. And then finally, the last thing mentioned was the NFTs. They are property. They are not money. They are assets in the form of property. So holding an NFT is like holding the title to something. And so that really has to be a kind of a separate topic. Okay, so I just wanted to contribute this to help you organize the way we talk about these topics.
Okay.
That's all.
Go on, but just let me add before Nolan is next in line, but let me just add a comment that yes, we have banks and all these other sorts of things, but the advantage of crypto, the banks are not available to the population of the world is 7 to 8 billion. Half of those people don't have access to banks. They could easily have access to cryptocurrencies. And another piece of it that doesn't do real well is, I mean, I don't know if you've done a real estate transaction or many other transactions, it's not uncommon for it to take days or even a week or two. These things happen instantaneously. That has an advantage. So I agree that it has to be better controlled, but I could see this coming. And I think we're going to appreciate places, the world in general is going to appreciate the advantages. Okay, Nolan.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to talk about crypto. I don't even use the second half of that word because I've been investing in crypto much longer than most of you guys.
Well,
and
only four of us have invested. So
well, I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, no, but we only four of us here.
My whole approach to investing is megatrends, and roughly 1% of the U.S. population now holds crypto. If it goes to 2%, the market's doubled. If it goes to 3%, it's tripled. I look at it as a commodity or a speculation. Get some paper and pencil. I'm going to give you guys some resources. There's a guy called Mr. Weiss, PhD. He is the S&P, the Standard & Poor's, and the ranker of all coins. He will give a Weiss rating to a coin and has been for years, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there's a rating system under Weiss. There is also so much, one of my main gurus is the Motley Fool. The Motley Fool, I'm at premium membership that you have to pay extra to get on the inside baseball. The Motley Fool laughed at crypto until November. They now call it a megatrend. And that's when I started investing in crypto. And they, like so many, are not interested in this currency aspect. And they say, not Bitcoin, but Ethereum, and not the radio either. Ethereum. Ethereum, if you look at it as an investment, you look at its price movement over the last 2 years, it's always done better than Bitcoin. It's about half the size of Bitcoin. Any day you look at it, if Bitcoin goes up 5%, Ethereum goes up more. If Bitcoin goes down 10%, Ethereum goes down less. So if you want to hold me liable for a tip, the Motley Fool also recommends Ethereum. They do not recommend Bitcoin. This whole idea of thinking this is going to go away. Warren Buffett laughed at Bitcoin. Now he's in. All the sharks on Shark Tank laughed at Bitcoin. Now they're in. Jamie Dimon laughed at Bitcoin. Now he's in. You're having Bitcoin Visa, Bitcoin MasterCard, the Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, all of Wall Street is all in now. They've given up resistance. Resistance is futile. The other thing about crypto that you should really understand is one of my gurus, a guy named Bryce Paul, who'll give you a book, Crypto 101. He has what he calls the main drivers of value of a particular coin. And they all say 90+% of these coins are worthless. There's a consensus. You don't want to go down the wrong track. Most of these coins are worthless. But he says, look for people, look for problems, and look for projects. So you have coins now that are addressed to what's called DeFi or decentralized finance, like Avalanche and a bunch of other ones. You look at a real world problem, you look at the people that are involved behind the coin and are solving it, and look at what they're doing. And that is real value, lasting value. And I've probably spoken enough to trigger maybe some reactions.
Well, just let me add a comment that in the mid to late 90s, I'm having a senior moment, I forgot his name, the Microsoft guy, he didn't believe in the internet, didn't think it was going to go anywhere.
Right. It's true of so many innovations and so many revolutions. And it's now the currency of El Salvador. Not that that means a hell of a lot to me, but it's going to be accepted. Walmart is going to have crypto.
Yeah.
Crypto. Walmart, how mainstream can you get? As I say, crypto's gone mainstream. Walmart's going to have machines in all their stores on crypto. So if you don't think it's going mainstream, it's not too late. I mean, you can still make a lot of money on this mega trend. We are in the early stages, and it's had some horrible bear markets. It's had some horrible bull markets. It's got some crazy chaotic times. And so I look at it as an investment vehicle, as an investment commodity.
Okay, Mitch is next.
Yeah, during the video, he said that crypto is not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. If I got the right word,
That's
if I got the
said.
right quote. What the heck is pseudonymous? I mean, does anybody know I just want to get I want to understand the lingo. Anybody?
I think pseudonymous means that if you have a pen name, you have an alias, but you may know the pen name, but you don't know the real person behind the pen name. So it's pseudonymous in that sense.
It's the same as Gmail accounts. You can sign up for a Gmail account and give a phony name.
So it can be traced back, but whether or not it can be totally traced back to you, I guess, is up in the air.
Thank you.
Right. And you also get into this issue, which I think is a big issue. You have private keys and public keys in the blockchain algorithm. If you lose your private key, you've lost your money forever. And there are interesting stories of people who, there's this guy in San Francisco who had something like 10,000 Bitcoin that is now worth close to $300 million. And he kept it in a crypto wallet, and he lost the password to the crypto wallet, and he can't get access to his $300 million.
Al, where does that money go? Does somebody else benefit from it, or does it just vanish totally?
When you burn paper money, where does it go?
Into the atmosphere as a bunch of molecules.
Okay, Paul, you're next.
Oh, yeah, two
Actually,
points.
if I can jump in very quickly, and I apologize for interrupting. It's not that the lost Bitcoin disappears. It's still there. It's just cannot be used. Can't be accessed. So it's like
No one can access it though, right? I mean,
correct.
One
No one can. So it's like it's like take a pallet of cash, put it in the garage somewhere, lock up the garage, and then have an impregnable lock, and then that cash sits there forever.
Like the dead letter office.
Exactly.
Okay, so I wanted to make 2 points. First, a point about the video, and I agree with Al's comments. It was entertaining, but pretty superficial. And one point in particular is that guy really doesn't understand what Bitcoin mining is. And all that electricity is not being used by people managing very large spreadsheets. It actually has to do with coming up with these very large primes so that you can create new encryptions and so on and so forth. But that's a whole other conversation, which he is apparently not aware of because he didn't make any allusion to that. The other thing is, I fail to see how any of these cryptocurrencies could possibly be used for actual commerce of anything, real and tangible because of those swings. I mean, there's a point that Mark made, but I think, does anybody know if anything is actually being sold by Bitcoin? I mean, something real. And I don't just mean an avatar in an online game or something, something real. And I'll tell you, the only time I've ever been confronted with doing a transaction with Bitcoin was when our computer system at Carusa, where I used to be an IT admin, was hacked by what do you call it? They were encrypting all our files, and then ransomware. It was hacked by ransomware, and I had to remediate. And even though I didn't let him get all the way to destroying all of our files or encrypting them, and I sort of nipped it in the bud, I could see the message that he was going to pop up at the end, and it was going to demand that we pay him $2,000 in Bitcoin. So there was an actual transaction that was presented to me. I declined. Instead, I repaired the files one way or another. But what would you actually buy? I think it's useless. I think it's only a speculation and investment opportunity, but prove otherwise.
I can't prove otherwise, but I got this offer from Madison Square Garden for my season tickets, which are thousands of dollars that I could pay in Bitcoin if I chose to, or pay in a cryptocurrency. I assume it's Bitcoin.
Yeah. If you pay on a day that it's low, then you're.
I'm not. I don't have it. I'm not saying I'm tempted to do it, but it is. I'm getting more and more things that appear that at least I don't want to do it, but that appear that I could pay in a cryptocurrency if I chose to.
Yeah, and
So
by the way, volatility alone doesn't mean it can't be a currency. Just ask the folks who exchange goods and services with their Argentine pesos.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the U.S. dollar, look what's happening to that right now. Yeah. It's not as bad as the Third Reich.
Well, we're nowhere near that. Hopefully we don't get there. Okay, Jim Fagan is up next. Jim, are you, it's your turn to speak, Jim, if you want. have
Can you
to-
hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. On that question of security, I'd just like to read a paragraph from a New York Times article of last March 30th. It said a cryptocurrency startup said Tuesday that hackers stole more than $500 million of cryptocurrency. The New York Times article goes on to state the decentralized nature of the crypto platforms, and with the oft-times inexperience of the developers of those platforms, leaves plenty of vulnerabilities inside the code for hackers to exploit. Since 2011, there have been 225 hacking instances, not including this $500 million one, that have led to theft of $12.1 billion. Research from Crystal Blockchain estimates. In 2021, there were a record 75 incidents that resulted in $4.25 billion being stolen, according to the firm. The largest crypto hack was August of 2021, when a DeFi protocol called Poly Network lost assets of $600 million at the time of the hack. That's from the New York Times of last week.
I can't comment on that.
I can make a comment on that. Go ahead, Al.
I think Jim makes an excellent point. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in the video and we haven't talked about are the crypto exchanges. You need an exchange in order to buy cryptocurrency, and you usually seed your account with dollars or some other fiat money. And these cryptocurrency exchanges are often very vulnerable. In the very early days of Bitcoin, there was Mt. Gox that lost hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, and we still don't know where it went to. So there's an infrastructure associated with Bitcoin. And I also agree with Nolan's comment that now is the time to make a lot of money in Bitcoin because of the greater fool theory. You can buy low and sell high, but how long is that going to keep up? And there have been a number of articles already about the early movers in Bitcoin are the people who are making lots of money, but how long will this keep up? And a final point I like to make is that there's on one of the cryptocurrency exchanges I looked at, there were close to 10,000 cryptocurrencies listed. These cryptocurrencies are not fungible. You can't trade one cryptocurrency to another. You have to go through an exchange. And why does the world need 10,000 cryptocurrencies?
I think they clearly don't, and only some of these currencies are going to be successful. But let me you have to generalize away from just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, by most things that I read, not the one to invest in if you're even thinking about it, or not the one to use. There are many that are better than that. And again, I think it's going to be changing over time. And because of the potential value that they can bring, I think some, maybe it's years away and maybe it's decades away. I certainly don't know. I lean towards years rather than decades. I think it's going to be something that works. Miguel, you're up next. Miguel, can you, you're muted, I guess. I don't hear you.
Okay, here we are.
There you are. Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, first of all, I do agree that we do have to separate the words crypto and currency because they're two totally different things. Crypto is the technological side, and we try to make something that has an agreed upon value. And the currency is only as good as the agreed upon value. I still have some Beanie Babies from 1990s that I thought were worth $2,000. And as soon as I can find somebody to give me $2,000 for my spotless spot, it'll be gone. So currency has an agreed upon value and someone that establishes that value and guarantees it. So if you have a currency, whether it's crypto or paper or gold, there's some authority that says, yes, this is the currency that's going to hold this amount of value. So all of these people that say they have $12 billion in cryptocurrency, well, it's only $12 billion if they can find somebody to give them $12 billion for it. They can put any number on it, but their opinion of the value is only justified when somebody else agrees with them and gives them the value. So if you have cryptocurrency in your vault, it's like having money in a safe. The guy who forgot his password is like forgetting the password on your safe. Money's still in there, you can't do anything with it. As far as the currency, the technology side goes, everybody's going to try to invent one, but it's not going to be, it's not going to matter until there is a SWIFT, Society for World Interbank Financial Managers transfers, that makes it possible to exchange. So I own some cryptocurrency. I own the grand total of $365 on Venmo. If you have Venmo, you can go and buy some. I bought $300 in December. I've made $65. So I think this is all just a modern, the crypto part is just a modern example of tulip bulbs, and everybody's going to go crazy and buy tulip bulbs, and somebody paid a ranch for it. And then, you know, tulip bulbs will go out of fashion just like the Beanie Babies. And until there is a guaranteed authority for the currency side, it's not going to be established as a form of exchange, because exchange has the word agreement embedded in it. And several countries will like to have their own exchange. What we're doing today with the sanctions on Russia, we can't do if there's a worldwide currency that's not under anybody's control. So many governments are going to have a problem with ceding that level of control to the cloud. I'm done. Thank you.
Jim Fagan.
Just following up with Al's point about the exchange, right now, the Securities Exchange Commission is conducting a study as to whether or not these cryptocurrencies are securities within the intent of the Securities Exchange Act. There's also proposed legislation, possible legislation being conducted in the Congress as to how to regulate these things. But that's another dimension that needs to be factored in. I think there is a fair possibility that there will be some kind of a just like the Securities Exchange Commission regulates New York Stock Exchange and other stock exchanges. I think there's a fair possibility that something similar will come to the fore with regard to the cryptocurrencies, although the cryptocurrencies are fighting it. That's it.
I think it's definitely the government wants to, sees it coming and wants to find a way to regulate it. But I will point out that in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago was an article about the IRS's position on all this stuff. And we actually, I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, it might be appropriate at a future time to show it. It's a 5-minute video about how the IRS looks at this and why it's on 1040. And so, you know, we can go there at some point if that's of enough interest, but it's coming, is my opinion. Griff, you're next.
I'm not going to claim to be any expert on this topic, just a little bit of experience with my son-in-law. My son-in-law felt obliged to play with it, with Bitcoin mining. His impression was that you use more resources to get a Bitcoin than the value of the resources that the value of the Bitcoins that were the result. my impression is that Bitcoin mining, especially these large scale operations, is essentially theft of resources. You're using huge amounts of computing resources and power resources that you're not paying for in order to produce Bitcoins by the mathematics behind the mining process. I have no intention of getting involved in Bitcoin at all. First of all, I don't think it's a good way of passing on resources to my children. But also, I think it's just a tulips. It's a waste. But then again, the American dollar, the U.S. dollar, is sometimes pretty dubious. So, not much more to say.
Okay, but again, let's not just focus on Bitcoin. It's the technology and how this is working. And you know, I believe certainly it's going to change, and certainly it's going to be more controlled, and certainly governments are there are lots of downsides. There is absolutely a dark side, but there are so many positives that we're going to find a way, just as we do in all other things. And I don't know how to estimate how far away it is, but I think it's important for us to know, which is why we're doing this. Okay, Rich Yeager.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I have a rather negative view of cryptocurrency in general. I think that it's something that's looking for a problem that it solves. It's a possible solution in search of a problem, and I know that people list potential uses like instantaneous transactions. I don't know if that's really a problem. Second comment is something is not a currency just because you call it a currency. And we perhaps glibly refer to cryptocurrencies and we think, oh, okay, it's called a currency, so it is a currency. That may be wishful thinking. Looking down the road, I'm thinking, what might it lead to? It may, after research and investigation, lead to better ways for central banks to issue money, and what that would actually wind up looking like, whether it would be similar to the way cryptocurrencies are done now, or something different, I can't say, but I see a potential use of this whole topic in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, Marcel?
So thanks. I think there's a foundational fallacy with cryptocurrencies. The idea that, well, we can get rid of banks, we can get rid of intermediaries which add friction in transactions. And so that's a good thing. And that's actually false, because you need banks. What do banks do? Banks bring counterparties together in such a way as to limit how much information each counterparty has to know about the other counterparty. You want to sell your house, you don't care anything about the person buying it as long as you know they can get a mortgage. That's what the banks brings to the table. They bring somebody that they have done financial analysis on and have convinced themselves that this person will be able to make the payments. But you don't have to worry about that, because in effect, the person's not going to make the payments to you. The bank's going to give you the money, and then the bank will collect payments from this individual. The bank interposes itself and limits what you, the seller, have to know about the other party. That's why banks cannot ever go away. Yeah, during the 90s, in the early phases of the public internet, Bill Gates publicly stood up at some conference somewhere, and he said banks are dinosaurs. And he admitted that he was wrong. 10 years later, in the late 2000s, he said, I was completely wrong in saying that. Banks will always be with us. Banks always must be with us because capitalism doesn't work without banks. And I'll observe, somebody talked about, all of the different institutions that are all in to cryptocurrencies and how cryptocurrencies are here and they're not going to go away. You'll notice many of these institutions are financial institutions. Well, why do they want in? Because there's a lot of people that are coming and they want to interpose themselves and do what banks do in the financial system and do in capitalism. That's why finance always makes money. Finance never loses money. There's a reason for that. So talking about how cryptocurrencies are a way to, you can get rid of government because you don't need central banks anymore. You can get rid of banks, and that's not true. That's false. That will never work. And in fact, the more people approach cryptocurrencies, think of cryptocurrencies, and work with cryptocurrencies in ways that will sideline these middlemen that are a foundational part of finance, the more risk we're taking that we'll have some catastrophic events at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you, George Cole. You're next.
Yeah, I'd like to make a point about two comments that were made. One was that that cryptocurrencies are secure, and as Jim mentioned, there are cases of it being stolen, and that's because of the way the mining process works in getting the ledgers, the blockchain set up. And basically, what that is, the way it works is the pool of miners throughout the world is solving a puzzle to be able to add the next block on the blockchain. So there's a pool where the transactions are sitting in the cloud waiting to be processed into a blockchain. During that time period, it's very open to having man-in-the-middle attacks, a lot of other ways of taking the money or taking the transactions of the coins and changing them because it hasn't been put in the blockchain yet. The other way, because of the process, the way it works, the way they do it is by solving some sort of problem and having it such that the probability, how hard it is to solve the problem, they usually set to around 6 minutes with all the miners in the world. So you really don't have a confirmation until your transaction is put into the blockchain, and then you have to wait because there are ways of attacking that last block. You really need to wait until 4 or 5 or even 10 blocks have been added before you can say that it is secure and safe. The other way of attack is because of that time lag, a lot of gaming companies or betting companies need a faster transaction So they build on top of that a completely separate blockchain that's then feeding into the underlying currency, cryptocurrency. And again, when you shorten that time, it becomes very easy to attack the blockchain and change the transactions. Matter of fact, last week I believe there was $300 million taken from one of the gaming sites using that same attack. So again, a lot of the benefits are really not there, and it's just something you have to watch out for when you consider about how secure it really is.
But don't you think, George, over time it's going to get more secure? And the transactions are going to happen faster, or they're going to take less energy?
No, because most of the algorithms are designed that as more and more miners get on board, and as the cryptocurrencies get more and more populated, what happens is that the algorithm becomes harder and harder to solve. If you look at any of the mining performance issues, they're measured in not terahertz, but terahashes, and that's a measure of how long it takes to solve the problem for the specific coin. And what's been happening is they've gone from using graphics processors, moving on to FPG, field programmable gate arrays, and now are using ASICs, application specific ICs, to do the hashing. And so even though the computing power has been going up, the times are still staying about the same as the processes adjust to delay or make it harder and harder to solve the problem.
Interesting. Jim Fagan, your hand is up again.
Yeah, well, following up on what George and Griff were saying, there was an article in March 20th, New York Times, Bitcoin miners' energy under fire. Bitcoin energy has riled environmental groups, alarmed some lawmakers, and put cryptocurrency at odds with the green movement. The crypto network requires miners to expend vast amounts of computer power to make it prohibitively expensive for somebody to take over the network, which could allow them to counterfeit Bitcoins or erase transactions. The Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance estimates that Bitcoin networks use slightly more energy a year, 134 terawatt hours, than Norway at 124 terawatt hours.
Okay, certainly that's an issue at the current time, but it's projected that that's going to change in the future, but we have to wait and see. Alejo, your hand is up again.
Well, George, and it was just recently mentioned that Bitcoin mining uses an enormous amount of electricity. I had read that Bitcoin mining used more electricity than the country of Finland. So now it exceeds Norway as well. But the point I'd like to make is that we should distinguish between the underlying technology of blockchain and between cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies use blockchain technology, but blockchain technology can be used for lots of other purposes. There are some organizations, and I think IBM was looking at
IBM is
using.
definitely, they've spent billions of dollars investing in it.
Yes, there's one application of blockchain, which I think some countries or organizations are using, is to keep track of deeds to property, because you don't need the very high speed transaction speeds that electronic commerce demands. And it's, I think, quite true that Bitcoin is not nearly as efficient as credit card transactions in terms of the amount of transactions per second that can be processed. So the technology for electronic commerce, I think, needs to be different from what we currently use in blockchain, in Bitcoin. The other comment that I like to make is that many of the protagonists of blockchain and cryptocurrencies want to get rid of the government. And I think this is anathema really to what some other people want, and that's security and longevity. And what organization is going to look after the interests of the people who are using this technology? It gets back again to this issue of, is there an IETF or some kind of organization that will look after the integrity of cryptocurrency networks? And the government is looking into this, I understand, but when we get into things like distributed autonomous organizations, what they want to do is get rid of any kind of supervision or government in the types of businesses they want to create. So this whole space is still up for grabs as to what it will look like when it settles down.
Oh, that's true. That's true. John, well, Paul is up next, but it doesn't look like he's at his screen at the moment. So John Tomaszewski. Oh, Paul is back. So sorry, Paul. Paul, do you want to make a comment or ask a question? Your hand is up. You're muted.
I think Al has actually pretty much asked my question, but I still have an extra bit to say about that. Although, there's cryptocurrency, which is one thing, and then there's blockchain, which is another, and they're closely related because the one enables the other. But I've heard that I don't know how many banks are sort of getting into cryptocurrency per se, but I have heard, maybe Al, you said this, that a lot of banks are seriously looking at blockchain as a way to overhaul their back-end operations and to simplify the structure of the company, because they've built much more complicated ways to manage and to keep private all that information and to be able to exchange transaction information with the other banks in the world. And I think they're hoping that a lot of that will go away, and blockchain will be a much simpler way to do it, and that they're working on that. But I'm not an expert, so somebody else could comment.
Well, there's an awful lot of interest from an awful lot of large organizations in experimenting and understanding blockchain. So lots of money is being spent on that. So there's many, many, many people and organizations that think blockchain as a technology is going to be very important and very useful, and even whether with or, certainly as a possibility with cryptocurrencies, but for many other applications as well. John Tomaszewski.
Yeah, a couple comments. Blockchain is now heavily used by purchasing departments when they want the auto industry uses it quite a bit, because that way they can keep their inventories down to very little, but get the products pretty fast. The other thing I want to say is I was wondering who pays for all these huge data banks of information and all the electricity they use. And what I found out was that they take pennies off of each transaction that happens, and that's how they pay for the electricity and the computers and houses that they use.
Oh, I think it's different based on which currency it is, and I think there's many, many, many different approaches to it, but some of them do have fees, and so that fits with that. but I don't know enough to comment intelligently. But it's interesting. Okay, looks like we have no more hands, unless I'm missing anything. I don't see any. So I'm interested in, was this a good idea to do this? I mean, just generally the approach, is this a good thing that we should do more of in TUG? And I do realize that it was really hard to pick a video. I do realize that we picked one that was sort of humorous to keep attention, and that it was very hard to find something that covered it from end to end. So this was not long, and it was not an unpleasant or too technical thing to watch. So that's why we chose it. Not that it's perfect or anything like that, but I thought it gave a good introduction. Any comments from anybody?
I think it was a good idea generally. I mean, to get a very general, knowledge of it. I really know very little about cryptocurrency, blockchains, et cetera. So at least gave it kind of the basics, and it gave us a basis for discussion, even if the video wasn't 100%, accurate. So I think it's a good approach to use in the future.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do is to get us to, because we're all coming at this from different points of view and different levels and levels of interest. So we were trying to find a way to get us to a common base that we could at least talk about it.
Hey, Paul, why don't we take a vote, see how many people thought this way interest?
Sure. Pose the question. Be careful to make it clear.
Okay.
How about, was this a valuable approach that we should do more of in the future?
Okay, so click a green yes or a red no in your reactions button.
Everybody who'd vote no already signed off for the call.
Yeah.
But we've lost, we had about 41, I think, when I looked before. It's 32 now. So,
Not too bad.
okay, but in general, it's a positive response. I mean, it is hard to find volunteers that are going to talk about any particular topic that we want to talk about. So this is a way that makes that a little bit easier, and hopefully there'll be some other people that will volunteer to take on other topics that are of interest to the group. But that's my goal, was that we learn more about it, because it is becoming more and more prevalent. And I think the more we know, the more informed we are, the better we can make our judgments as to whether or not just whether or not you want to invest. That is certainly a piece of it, but just understand what's going on, because it's popping up all over the place. That's what in the last 6 months, I mean, I've been looking at blockchain for probably 8 or 9 or 10 years, just trying to understand it. But in the last 6 months, there's all this other stuff going on. It seems like a dramatic change to me. Miguel, your hand, was that a hand up to vote yes?
Yes. I think this was very useful. I would like if you consider a session on blockchain. I mean, there are many applications of blockchain, and it is a technology. It is not a coin or a currency or anything. It's to me, it's sort of like database programming in the 80s.
Yes,
It's a new methodology for building things. There are ETFs of companies that are using blockchain. There's a cannabis company in Canada using blockchain to track its packages. It's all over the place. And it is a technology. If anyone could talk about it or where it's useful, that would be, I think that would be very interesting.
Okay, good. Noted. And I would like to find a way to do that. Philip, your hand is up.
Yes, thanks for having this. I appreciate it. And one observation I'm going to make is that I think the entire subject is very broad, and there may be enough different points of view and different areas that folks want to consider, that it could be a speculative investment, it could be a currency, it could be a means of exchange, it could be it disappears into the night with the drug dealer's money. I mean, there's any number of possible ways of looking at this, and it's entirely possible it'll all develop in parallel separately. And 10 years from now, there'll be, our whole system is going to include some or all pieces of that. I don't think this is a single thing focusing. I think it's a narrow thing going wider as we move forward with it. Just an observation.
No, good observation. But today we were trying to focus on cryptocurrencies, of which blockchain is the underlying technology. Blockchain is not a cryptocurrency, and it can
Right.
be used for many, many, many more things than that, and is being explored and being used for a number of things. And so, having a session on blockchain makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Right. That would be an excellent one from an expert, somebody who's actually,
Yeah, well, that's the problem is finding the expert. So that's why
Right.
we're going to,
Right.
we don't, as far as I know, within Old Guard, we don't have a blockchain expert.
may have to
But-
drop back one generation.
Well, okay, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's the reason for, in order to just not put it off forever and to do something about it, that's why we tried this video approach, which we'll probably do more
Right.
of. But it's a
Thank
question
you.
of finding the right video. Bill Heary. Oh, did somebody else want to add to that?
Tom, just one quick comment.
Sure.
I think in the terms of currency, in the future, 10 years from now, as he said, we will be digital, but digital in terms of MasterCard and Visa online, etc., but not necessarily crypto.
No,
Crypto
agree.
replaces the dollar.
Yeah,
Digital replaces the paper. I think
agree.
we'll replace the paper, but not the dollar.
I am not so sure. I mean, I think I will definitely have digital money. I mean, that's absolutely coming, but
We have
I
that
think-
now. Yeah.
I think there's a place for crypto in the future as well. Okay, Bill Heary.
Yes, I certainly agree with the idea that crypto and blockchain, or cryptocurrencies and blockchain, are two very different topics, even though there's interdependency. And I have found that in a lot of things that I've read, even the writers who seem to know what they're talking about don't always make that distinction. They will make some blanket claim that might only apply to blockchain, but they're talking in general, they think it applies to cryptocurrencies or vice versa. Even the New York Times whole section on crypto last week had a number of paragraphs, where it's clear they're only talking about one of those two things, but they make it sound like it's everything.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
also
it's
point,
generalized too much.
yeah. I'll also point out that some of you might remember that about a year ago, I did give a talk in this forum on the underlying technology of blockchain with some hints about some of the uses of it, but I didn't really go into the uses in detail. That I believe was recorded and is on the web. Maybe you could send a pointer out to the.
Was that for TUG or was that for math and interest?
No,
group?
it was, we have a YouTube video of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
It was
guess that,
probably for the math group, not TUG.
that
but
was
I think
for
it was for
that
the
was
math
for
group
me.
as opposed
Right.
to TUG.
All right. So it's yeah, send out a pointer for that. And that could be the background before another talk, which I think should emphasize more about where it is really being used now. At the time I did the talk, it was just starting to be used a bit. IBM had some examples that I haven't. There were others. I haven't been following who else is doing it now, but that could help even the people that just saw it today understand more about what's going on.
Yeah, that link is in the chat box right now.
Okay.
Alejo, your hand is up again.
Just a very quick comment. Tom, I think you had on your list of topics, the evolution of the internet.
Yes.
Some people are saying blockchain is going to be essential for Web 3.0. And I'm wondering if in our evolution of the internet conversation, we could talk about, is that a good idea or a bad idea or just more hype?
Okay, but we need, I need someone to volunteer to lead that discussion. So I'm not pointing fingers, but anybody that wants to step up to do that, and you can be done by a video or by getting a guest speaker or whatever else, but I don't know who we can have to do. I don't want to suggest anybody, but I don't know on my own anybody that would be a perfect answer to that, or not even a good answer to that. But I leave it open. But I mean, I want to do something more on blockchain and on the future of the internet. But we don't, I'm not aware that we have an expert that's going to volunteer to lead the discussion. And I don't feel competent to do that. So anyway, Bill, your hand is up again.
Yeah, just one more point on blockchain. Very early in this discussion, Tom, you mentioned some things that you thought were very good about, you were talking about crypto, but you were talking about things like contracts can be enforced to it. That's actually blockchain that does that. You could have a blockchain that's a private blockchain, all denominated in dollars, and have all the contract things following through automatically. And that's what places like Ford and IBM is setting up.
Right, and that the reason that I got there by talking about Ethereum, which all these cryptocurrencies use blockchain.
Sure.
As far as I know, all of them use blockchain as their underlying technology, and that is something that Ethereum has added to the concept of a Bitcoin so that contracts can be part of it, but it uses blockchain to do it. But it's really hard to figure out where to start on this stuff because there's so many things out there, and you know, we wanted to put a perspective on it because we don't all come in very knowledgeable on it. So, you know, but yes, you're right. I agree.
And a point about all the energy costs for the Bitcoin mining, that's specific to Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies. There are other concepts of sort of certifying what's going on all the different nodes is correct, that are based not on proof of work, which is what the Bitcoin method is, but on proof of stake. That is essentially a weighted consensus of the people who have money in it, as opposed to having to do a lot of work with crypto functions, which are very costly.
There's a book out called DeFi for Decentralized Finance that's very short that I read, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, that I believe also talks about how the energy aspect of it, that different cryptocurrencies, different applications pursue this stuff differently, and that the energy cost is potentially going to go away over time, not go away, but be much more reasonable over time.
And there can also be private blockchain just for the blockchain functions, where it's just one entity like a bank or a government that controls the blockchain, and that doesn't need this consensus of the bit miners.
Right.
They can do their own consensus.
Well, part of the investment that IBM was doing was to know enough about blockchain so that they could help individual companies set up applications for their own internal use using blockchain.
That's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they also, as a service to other companies.
Well, yeah, I mean, that they're interested in, it's no longer a computer hardware and software company. It's mostly services as well.
Right.
And much more software than hardware at this point in time. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I raised my hand again.
I see your hand against the blue sky. It comes in a much lighter color than the yellow, and
So here's what I want to say. I want to pose an extra credit project to the members of this group, and here it is. Let's take the old guard orchid logo and turn it into a non-fungible token, and then report back to the group about what it took to do that, how much it cost, and present it to the world and say, well, we have one too. You can buy ours and pay us money.
If we have any volunteers, it'd be a great experiment. And you don't need to decide now, but if anybody of you are willing to do that, please, let us know.
It could be a JPEG of Tom Tobish, but I decided to make it more neutral.
Yeah, make it more neutral than that. But these NFTs are, that wasn't part of today's discussion. It was just at the end to kind of fill it in. But they are getting an awful lot of press. Anybody and everybody in Madison Square Garden sells Ranger NFTs and Nick NFTs. I mean, they're at least up there for sale. I don't know anybody who's bought one.
No, I got a great one. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? If not, I guess we're done for today. And our next meeting will be 3 weeks away. And we are having an updated version from John Tomaszewski about TV alternatives and cutting the cable. To whet your appetites, if any of you are interested in that. Okay. Other than that, I guess we're done. Thank you all for joining us. And I appreciate all your interest and level of contacts and context that you're adding to this. And I certainly learned a lot.
Thanks for all the comments.
It was very good.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom, and everyone.
Good
Good
job.
session.
Good, everybody.